Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Real Estate Investment Workshop. It's an opportunity to learn about opportunities and avenues within the real estate sector. It's my pleasure to come your way again with this edition of the Real Estate Investment Workshop. This is the June edition, and has been a series that takes place in Ghana with webinars, workshops, tours, and this is the virtual edition of the program. This is sponsored by the Intim Group, which is a leading firm in real estate that's investing in Ghana and provides a series of these programmings to educate stakeholders in the real estate industry, from buyers to sellers to real estate agents and service providers and more as well. So it's a pleasure to come your way with this session once again. We're thankful to all our speakers that have graced the occasion for the real estate investment workshop series that started in 2023 running through 2024 and then this year as well. So we're thankful to all our speakers that have graced this occasion. We're happy to introduce a new set of speakers for the session today. We look at some real estate players and we bring in individuals and thought leaders that have shown incredible expertise within the real estate sector today. So to kickstart the session today, I'd like to invite our resident moderator in the person of Nyama Rao to take us through our speakers for today. The session is going to have a panel discussion with two speakers that would throw more light into areas within the real estate sector. I'd like to say too much about the speakers, but I invite our moderator Nyama Rao to take us through um, introduce our speakers for the session today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. And I'm happy you've welcomed me. And at this point, we'll dive into today's session of the Real Estate Investment Workshop. And today we have Surveyor James and then Dr. Jonathan. I just welcome them on the stage right away so we can go live and dive into today's discussion. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
Okay. All right. Sure. Hi. I hope we are all well and we are good to start.
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to have you all, Dr. Jonathan and Surveyor James.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, for having us.
Sure. Okay. All right. So to kickstart, I think there is a feedback.
Okay, so he's setting up with his device. That kickstart, kindly introduce yourself and tell us what you do. We'll start with you, Dr. Jonathan.
Hello, everyone, and I want to say thanks to the NTIM Group and the organizers of this real estate investment workshop for the invitation. I am currently a real estate research fellow at the University of Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. How about you, Mr.
Yeah, hello everyone, and good morning from Ghana. My name is Surveyor James Mesiapia, and I'm a valuation and estate surveyor. I'm with A&L Valuation and Property Consult here in Accra. So we are into all sort of property management, valuations, we have implementation, anything that concerns from the land to the building. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Daniel. All right. Thank you very much, Daniel.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Well, I can't hear you.
Yes, definitely Chris can't also hear you.
We
Ralph,
still
we can
cannot
hear you.
We still cannot hear you. Hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's perfect now. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much. So I just want to know what inspired you to pursue real estate and what keeps you going. Let's kick start from that.
Um, I'm just going to follow the order in which you introduced yourself. So,
Yeah.
for me, I come from a very large African country, Nigeria. We are about 200 million people, Africans, young people, and of all the basic essential elements that keep a society functioning, shelter is at the forefront of the challenges that Nigeria faces. So while there are a lot of interesting and exciting reasons why I am in the real estate and housing space, I actually got into this space by chance. While I was in high school, I was like struggling with chemistry. That was one of the required science subjects. And I felt that I wanted to do something that I was really passionate about. I didn't want to go into a program that I would be struggling with. So I looked out at the programs in university and I found out that real estate was something
Okay.
that would achieve that for me. So that was what really led me into the real estate space. And of course, my dad around that time that guided me in the choice was also telling me stories about his grandfather who helped other people build their homes. So my grandfather, I would say in some sense, inspired my choice of the profession. So I then studied my undergrad in Nigeria and now did my postgrad in South Africa. But to speak to what exactly now inspires me in the work that I do, my grandfather's house or building, built many years ago, still standing somewhere in Osun State, in an area that is now transforming into more of a commercial area. So what used to be is residential home, a huge residential home, is now being converted into something commercial. And that is just an example of how cities are transforming, spaces are changing, and what people need in terms of shelter is also changing. And for me, growing up, I also saw the struggles we had as a family, getting our own shelter. My parents worked hard their whole lives and only could build their own homes in retire. I mean, their own home in retirement. And I know there are a lot of families like that in our communities who rent their whole lives and then can only afford to maybe build or own their home in retirement. And there are also some that struggle throughout, and they go from inadequate shelter to school with their kids go to school from inadequate shelter. I've seen all kinds of inadequate habitations that people live in just to survive. And so when we talk about the housing shortage in Africa or in Nigeria, a lot of people talk about the housing shortage like there are like 20 million people walking around homeless in Nigeria, and that's not the full picture of the housing shortage. So for me, the inspiration there is to help people understand fully what housing looks like, what the housing struggle for families, for households look like in Africa, and some of the solutions that we can start to think together, co-create to solve these challenges. I've always felt that it's unjust for a child to go, to grow up without a stable home, and that is something that keeps me passionate. I see how it affects people's livelihoods and how it affects the standard of living that people have, and that inspires me to remain in the space. I think that's all for now. Thank you. You're muted, Ralph.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting, and I look forward in. I took some few questions, but as we go on, I'll ask so that you give more light on that.
Okay.
So, Sylvia James,
Yes.
can you also tell us what keeps you going in the real estate industry, and why real estate?
Yeah. Thank you, Raf, for the question. And this one boils down to, as Dr. Jonathan said, it's about passion. And I actually, in my high school education, when I decided that, I have a brother who is actually in 27, who is studying building technology. So from there, I developed, because I was close to him, I developed that passion for buildings and things that relate to building. So in my high school program, then I decided, okay, he proposed that I should look into either land economy or land management. These courses will provide you some sort of guidance onto which profession you want to go. So it was from there that I decided that, well, looking at the content in which the land economy was having at that point, it embodies everything from the land to the building, where you learn how to draw building plans, where you learn how to learn about what do you call it, the land laws, valuation, and then the real estate agency brokerage. Like it embodies everything from the beginning, even the property management and even the facility management. So it's a whole general program that I fell in love with, and then I decided, well, that would be my profession, and then I'll use that to actually advise people. So when I found my way through to the university, I completed and then came into the professional field where I trained with the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, evaluation and estate surveyor, to advise clients who needs any advisory services in the area of valuation, property services, anything that concerns land and properties. So back currently in my role as a valuation and estate surveyor, my boss will always tell you that it is about the details. It's about not leaving the client hanging. Someone may, because you need valuation, I can just put a report together and give you a report and say your property is like 2,000 Ghana cedis. But you go beyond that and educate the person. Maybe you found something wrong with the person's document or the property. That is where you have to let the person know that do this, do that, and it will help you most. So you find us helping and going beyond what we provide in terms of just providing figures to also advise you on what you are supposed to do. So that is the passion for over the years. And I can tell you that anytime I'm doing it, it's like you are doing it out of your own love for the job. You see some property and you want to go at your best moment to do whatever you want to do for it. So it's out of that passion that we develop, and it has become my profession now, the career I've chosen to do, and it's a way that I want to go. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Surveyor James. Talk of evaluation. In Ghana, it's a bit complex when it comes to land registration. I just want to find out, how can anyone, or especially the young ones and investors, navigate Ghana's often complex land registration and valuation system more effectively?
Thank you for that. Let's look at the land, because it looks like your question are in two folds here. Now, the land administration aspect. In Ghana here, we have two types of land. Either you are buying from the state or you are buying from the individual, which the state owns about 20% of Ghana lands, and then the remaining 80% is with the chiefs and the private individuals. Now, where you want to buy a land from anyone, the first point of view is, where are you buying the land from? Your location. Then you now have to do your due diligence to understand who owns the land beyond the documents or the site plans that has been given to you by the owner. What then do you have to do? Go behind that person and then do your research. Employ a professional, just like ourselves. We will go into details and give you reports about, okay, what is wrong with your land. Sometimes someone may give you a site plan because you want to buy a site plan, and you realize that the site plan that the person has given you does not conform to the location you are interested in. So you go and run a search on such report, on such land, and you realize that it will give you a clear, oh, everything is okay. That is not the right way. In some cases, you have to now take a surveyor, a qualified surveyor, a professional land surveyor, to the site in which you are interested in. Buy or demarcate and do your own site plan, and then go and do a search. Lands Commission, so far as they have the records, will give you all kinds of records, or the records of any transaction that has happened on the land. So, by going back to your question, whether you are buying from the state, you need to make yourself from that point to know that, oh, this land is not for maybe Mr. Jones or Mr. Ralph, but it's for the state. So I'm going to the Lands Commission to buy such a land. So likewise, if you are going to buy the land from, say, Mr. Ralph, you need to also go to him and understand what are the people, who are the actual people who bought who owns the land. So I may buy a land and I want to transfer it to you. Now, beyond me, before you take the land from me, you bought the land from some people. You get the history from such transaction. So all that I can say is that the land administration system is very complex in Ghana here, but it all boils down to the fact that you need to pay attention. The issues that have always been with our land in terms of double sales of land and even indeterminate of boundaries. You can't even determine the boundaries. Now, you may go, someone has bought the land and someone also go behind it and then sell it to another person. How do you check all these things? You don't just pay money and then thinking that you have bought a land. You need to do your due diligence. That is the administration or the land administration part of it. It boils down to what you have to. Ghana here, what I know is that people want to act, pay the money before they get to a professional. By the time you come, the person has run away with your money or gone away. So you have to now, first of all, the moment you think of getting a land or getting a property, contact a professional. A professional may not charge you how much. You see, the cost that you will pay for the professional or the expenses you make for the professional is far, far lower than the expense or the cost that you incur in case you lose out on the land. So just contact a professional. Lance, if you can't find any of them, just go to the Ghana Institute of Surveyor. Oh, give me a surveyor to help me with this activity. That way, you know that the person is going to guide you. If I'm privy to a document where a transaction, the person has got the land already. Now we are trying to register the land. What happens is that before we go and register the land, we want to know whether even the land is it even registerable. So we take your site plan and then we go to Lands Commission. We try to do some inquiries about the land. We go to the grounds and also make some inquiries about the land. And we want to confirm with your document that you have given, whether the person who gave you the land was the actual person who should give you that land. So when we test the waters to see who actually owns such land, then it comes out that the land is registrable, then we can now engage you and give you our invoice for you to start our process. Without that, we can take your money from onset and then we'll go and end in the middle of the registration and tell you that, oh, the land price is not registrable. The land is not registrable. When it happened that way, it looks like then we are not, or as a professional, you were not able to do your work very well. You were not able to guide the person very well. Because if the land is not registrable, let the person know that this land cannot be registered because Kwadwo or Kwesi Mensah has registered this land. Maybe Mr. Ralph's name is on it that he owns a title certificate on this land. For that matter, if you have bought this land from anyone and it is not any other person than Mr. Ralph, then it means that you have been duped and this land cannot go ahead to be registered. Unless in situations where the person, maybe there's a mistake or there's an issue where the person whose name is on the registration says that, oh, I can give you a letter to take you to Lands Commission for you to register. So those complexities are there. But like I said, the first point of call is to engage a professional to get your work going. The valuation aspect is very simple. Valuation, as we say, an estimate. An estimate of what your property is worth at any point in time for whatever purpose you want to use it for. Now, some people want to sell their properties and they just put any property, any price on it. How can you tell that this property that you have put a price on, it will go to the market and to perform well? How many calls will you get? How many clicks will you get? It depends on the research or depends on the advisory services by the professional, like a valuer. You appoint a valuer. Advise me on how best I can get a value or how best I can sell this or this property will perform on the market. The person will go ahead and tell you, even at the worst moment, at the least moment, this is how much you can get from the property. Instead of you maybe putting a price that is low or putting a price that is way beyond what your property is asking or what property is worth. So the valuation aspects, Ghanaians are now trying to, now you get inquiries or you get request for sales. I want evaluation. The request is that I want to sell. It means that yes, Ghanaians are now understanding the work of valuers, that they need a professional assessment of the properties to be able to place a value on their or a price on their property to sell on the market. Without that, you will only be living and you put your property for 5 years. Some of them, there are some people or some clients who come in, they have their own value. Oh, sell this property for me. And you try to advise them. We may not be in the best position because of conflict of interest, selling the same property and also valuing it. So we may try to advise, oh, go and do evaluation. Do valuation of your property. Let us see how the price is. And then we will advise where to peg the price. They will not understand. But because they think that I have spent this much and I want this huge amount of profit, they will want to put any price on it. But I realize that 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line, the property is not selling. Now you have to reduce it. If you listen to the valuation or the expert, probably your property may have gone. So probably we may go deeper into the valuation aspect. But for now, the complexity of how to navigate through this land administration evaluation sector all boils down to getting the right person or the right resource or professionals.
All right. Thank you very much, Sylvia James. I'll come back to ask you, how do we then identify the right person? Because everybody can come out and tell us they're a surveyor or they're evaluation manager or something.
Yes.
How do we then identify? But before that, let me go to Dr. Jonathan. Hi, Dr. Jonathan. I hope you can hear me. Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
So I just want to find out, we've been hearing affordable housing. I want to know what, and the audience also wants to know, what is affordable housing? Is it that maybe a housing that is now costing $1 or 100 naira that everybody can easily afford? What is it? And also, what role does incremental housing finance play in addressing the affordable housing? Yeah.
Okay, so let me start from your first question, which is what is affordable housing? There's no blanket uh, estimation of affordability, but there are some estimates that have been made globally that the cost of your annual expense on housing shouldn't exceed a third or 30% of your household income. So that estimate is typically used as a benchmark for what affordable housing is. Now, in the African context, affordability, changes according to which country or which region you are in, because the earning power of each country also differs. How much people can afford in Accra, Ghana is different from how much people are, the general household income or average household income in Accra, Ghana is different from Lagos, is different from Johannesburg, South Africa, is different from Nairobi, Kenya, and other cities, even because I just mentioned capital cities right now. But when you start to go into each country, and different cities within those countries, you find out that the average household income would also differ across those cities. But with that benchmark that we've highlighted, 30% of the household income, you can have an idea. Now, the challenge with affordability is that when developers are constructing property, they do not use household income as the benchmark for the cost of material, the cost of development, the cost of professional services. Property development services also take different. They also cost different amounts in different countries. The Center for Affordable Housing Finance does a yearly estimate of what is the cheapest built housing or property in each country. So when you look at that data, you would see that across different countries, there are different estimates. But one thing you'll find in common is that for almost all the countries in Africa, the cheapest housing or cheapest building that can be constructed still exceeds, the average household, income in terms of how much they will be able to spend in acquiring that accommodation. So a lot of people default to rental accommodation, and then we have also the slums and shacks, informal settlements, and all these other housing that are outside of the very adequate housing that come out because people are not able to afford even that basic the cheapest development or construction that is done in the most habitable manner. So that is what affordability. I hope that gives some idea of what affordability looks like across the continent. There's still a lot of people struggling with that, with being able to afford that based on the household income or average household income of every city or every country. So affordability is still a challenge. Now, your second question was, what does incremental housing, or what is the role of incremental housing in addressing this challenge, right?
Yeah.
We all understand that finance plays a critical role in every housing project. One of the things that I see a lot of, the mistakes, or will I say oversight, that we have in addressing housing shortage is that a lot of us talk about the development part, the materials, the design, and all these other things without talking about the element of the finance. Where will the money come from? No matter how you reinvent or rethink housing development, someone still has to pay for it eventually. And that financing is where a lot of systems that come to Africa fail, and where a lot of investors also fail, because they also try to tap into systems that are not tailored to the unique challenges of Africa. For example, the housing finance models like mortgages, you will see that some of these mortgage systems, they require things like formal employment, 20 to 30% down payment, and very, short period of short repayment periods. And that is just out of touch with the reality of a lot of people. 80% of Africa's labor force works informally, at least that is the estimate, right? And mortgage maybe serves about 3% in most countries. Like in my PhD study, that was one of the things we started to identify as a problem, that a lot of people are trying to embrace the mortgage finance system, which can only serve maybe like 3% of the population, the top 3% of every country. What then happens to all these other people, the 80%, the 90%, whose income cannot fit into the model of the mortgage system? So that is where incremental finance and other kinds of models, start to come into play. Like I said in the first question I was asked, I shared how when my own parents got into their retirement age, that was when they built their own home. One thing I didn't mention is that we didn't move into a complete construction. We moved into the home while it was still being built, almost finished up. And I know a lot of families, a lot of communities that build like that. We build around ourselves. Sometimes people build one room, make sure it's finished, maybe the parlor and the kitchen, and then you extend, you build another part, you grow it, and that's what we call incremental. A lot of our communities are like that. So if that is the way we build, we need to then start reinventing also the way we finance. Instead of someone giving you like a bulk capital for a project to buy a ready-made house, why not a financing that aligns with the kind of capacity you have? And that is where incremental housing finance is rooted in. It's rooted in that ideology that people have a right to have homes that they really want, in the places that they really want to live in. But then they will need financing facilities that accommodate their capacity gradually, incrementally. So it respects that of the organic way that people grow their households, and it allows them to expand at their own pace. My doctoral study in South Africa focused on an institution called the NHFC. They have an incremental housing finance facility, and I think that's probably one of the, I'm saying this cautiously, one of the only properly established incremental housing facilities in the continent. And this model provides housing micro loans through small micro lenders, building supply outlets. So they help people to build and collect these materials for their building little at a time, as much as they can afford to repay. And the interesting thing we found in that research was that the default rate on these loans was close to zero, almost zero. The institution told us that they were getting up to 90-something% repayment. And this goes against what most people say about low-income earners when it comes to housing, is that there's a risk that they will default. And that is where the mortgage model is built around, the idea that we want to exclude low risk as much as possible. We want to be risk averse. But what you find out is that when the model is done right, you actually minimize the risk of default, and the people are more motivated to build their own homes, because already they were always going to build their own homes. You are only just giving them the tools to do it faster, to do it better, to reduce, the failure of those properties. Because if you have enough money to pace your building, you know that you're not going to build a shack, you will build a better home. It may take you a gradual process, but you will do it better than if you are just like scrapping materials on your own. So that is the advantage that incremental housing finance brings. And then there are other models like this. In Kenya, there's Macau, there's Habitat for Humanity also doing things like that in Uganda, in Zambia, in Kenya. I think there are also some microloan housing microfinance programs in Ghana as well. So what I'm saying here in essence is that those who might be interested in the affordable housing markets, whether in Ghana, in Nigeria, or Kenya, need to shift their focus a little bit into this incremental or micro loan financing facilities, and incorporate them into their investment planning and their investment design. So I'll stop there.
All right, thank you very much. That was very interesting. Knowing about the affordable housing and some of the approach by which individuals can go by, and others. You mentioned the microeconomics. I want to know, how do microeconomic conditions like the inflation, interest rate, and public spending shape access to housing finance for low and middle income earners in Africa cities?
Okay, so one of the macroeconomic conditions, they are quite important. The truth is only a few people pay attention to them. I mean, if you talk to my parents or anyone right now building their home, they might not really care. I mean, there's inflation, but it's almost like an abstract idea. We just know that things are expensive. Materials are expensive, and we just keep saying that materials are expensive, but we don't really look at exactly how is this affecting us in terms of the systems that are available for housing development. So in my master's research, I looked at indicators like inflation and interest rates, and how they influence real estate investment trusts in South Africa and Nigeria. We were trying to use that as a kind of proxy, because when investors come to Africa, they don't know how to use some of these indicators, effectively, especially because the markets are often very unstructured. Everybody is building and just building as they go, like I said, incrementally. So an investor that is trying to tap into the market is also trying to understand, okay, how do I use information like, okay, rising, inflation or interest rates? And that is something that research we did in my master's was focusing on. That can we use some of this data as proxy for investors? So what we saw, for example, in Nigeria, mortgage rates would hover between like 18 and 25%, and then you have your inflation exceeding 30%. That volatility is something that if you are someone that wants to create housing solutions where people come to buy, home buyers, you will know that is a very volatile, very risky investment, and that would make you, immediately caution yourself in investing, at scale, because you know that people are also going to be cautious buyers. Nobody has that amount of huge capital to just put into your project. So, and one thing you also realize is that it's going to be difficult for people in such markets to go to the bank to borrow, because the banks too are conservative because of these volatile and high levels of inflation and interest rates, right? So people, both the bank and the people, they are cautious of each other. if you ask people in Nigeria or in Ghana right now, would you go and take a loan in the bank to buy a house? Most of them are scared of it because it's like the interest rates are going to really just finish their whole income. So it's something they are scared of, right? And yet we know that, like I said earlier, the informal sector is like the highest percentage, 55 to 85% of the urban economy in most African cities. They are in the informal sectors. They are, they earn outside of the formal economy. So we need to start thinking of how does this, what other aspect of the economy will these people be, or will most people be interested in, getting their financing from, if these are the macroeconomic conditions. So if the macroeconomic conditions look like this, maybe micro lenders, maybe cooperatives, maybe savings and credit cooperatives are better adapted to these volatilities. And that's the truth, because these micro lenders, they also incorporate that element of community. Some of them build their systems around maybe where the people work. For example, cooperatives for teachers. Those kinds of things, they give them flexibility in terms of repayment structure. And so people are more attuned to, when the economy is bad or the economy is difficult, they are more, encouraged to go towards this kind of solutions when it comes to getting their financing. So, but one big issue I would say about macroeconomic data is that a lot of people talk about them like they are just some static information, like, the economy is bad right now, interest rate is high, inflation is high, and that's all we keep hearing. So investors also need to be careful of using such information. It's not just about interest rate is high, inflation is high. Macroeconomic data is a continuum. It's a series. And every market is like a cycle. You have your peak, and then you have the fall. So when you look at macroeconomic data as that in time series format, you can get better understanding of the patterns that are happening in each country. You look at how was inflation last year compared to this year, compared to 10 years ago, what's changing, and how can that help us to predict the future? That is a better way to look at macroeconomy than just, they said inflation is high, they said interest rate is high, they said unemployment is high. That it's better to look at it as what relationship does the data we have now have with the past, and then how can we use that to predict the future. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan. So James, I think I have to come back to you. Before leaving, I left you with one question: how do we identify a good surveyor or the right professional to do our valuation and then surveying for us? So let's pick it up from there.
I think depending on, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So yes, so depending on what you are looking for, we have, if you come to the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, we have three types or three kind of divisions. We have the land surveying division, the quantity surveying division, and the valuation and estate surveying division. Most of these divisions have various firms and various professionals within them. So if you are looking for someone within my profession, say valuation and estate surveyor, your last resort for anything that you can look for is go to the institution that, I need a valuation, get me one surveyor, get me one valuer, or get me one valuer, and they will just give you a surveyor. Other than that, today we are in a global world where internet use and everything is there. So unlike my firm, for instance, you just logged on ANL Valuation and Property Consult, you can find anything from us. And when you start engaging us, professional surveyor is someone who is in good standing with the Ghana Institution of Surveyors. If you don't know anything at all, when you meet a person and the person asks you that, I'm a surveyor, I'm a valuer, just pick the person's name and go to the Ghana Institution of Surveyors. we have a portal where you can just put the person's name there. If the system will tell you whether the person is in good standing, a qualified valuer or a qualified land surveyor, whatever it is, the system is going to give you this data and it will give you an indication whether you want to go ahead and deal with this person or not. Today, we have so many unqualified people who, because of the want of their greediness and everything, they will just come, oh, I'm a surveyor, let me help you. And they will put something together because of some document they are privy to, and they can easily do something for you. But based on the purpose you want to use that valuation report for, you realize that it will lack the credibility of that document. So finding a good surveyor or find a surveyor, it shouldn't be too much. Sometimes, even if you know someone who has used the service of a valuer or a land surveyor or a quantity surveyor before, they can recommend. Most of our work comes out of recommendation. Some of them too, they just go on our website, just click evaluation, and then they will find our services, and they will contact us through that. Some of them too will just walk to the Ghana Institution of Surveyors doorstep, secretariat, which is Ashiashi, and then they will just request that, oh, they need the services of a valuer, and they will give them those in good standing. Now, a member in good standing is those who are always up to scale with the CPDs, and also someone who pays subscription. So someone who is in good standing always, all the time, they pay their, and then they will give you these kind of people who they know, they trust that they can help you to get your work through. So some of these looking for surveyor, and it all boils down to what you look for. If they think you contacted a quack surveyor or someone who claimed to be a surveyor and they have provided you with the service you want, it all boils down to the credibility. When it gets to a point where we need to testify or maybe test the credibility of the report or the document that has been prepared for you, that is where you find yourself wanting. That it means that you are going to, just like people buy fraudulent land, you have to buy the land 2 times, or you have to provide or go for the service 2 times again. Now you have to look for. So first of all, make sure you know people who know certain values they have used for, surveyors they have used for, or the best point, just go to the institution to look for a surveyor, and they will give you one best one that is in good standing.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I also want to find out, you mentioned about buying a land twice. In terms of due diligence, what can you do to improve on transparency? Because I may hire a surveyor and then ask him to do a work for me. Who knows? You just mentioned there are some individuals in there who are in just for money. So maybe because of the money, I'm ready to pay the amount that he or she wants, and he's just ready to get the work done. But then in terms of due diligence, it's not. So the work was done. I thought, okay, I can go ahead and purchase this land. After purchasing it, I realized the due diligence was not done. So how do I improve on transparency when it comes to due diligence?
So thank you. So the surveyor, as I said, any surveyor from the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, one thing that we stand for is integrity. I don't think, Ralph, you will take me to your plot of land and I will survey the land, or the land surveyor will work on the site plan for you, and then they will go and give you probably a site plan that is lying somewhere. Mostly, the surveyor's duty is to just prepare the site plan or the boundaries wherever your cadastral plan for you. Your duty is to now, whether you want to engage that same surveyor to go ahead and do the due diligence for you. Then that one comes to the fact that you go to that lands commission. The lands commission is going to look at records that has actually, or transactions that has happened on that land. What are the transactions? Sometimes they can tell you a whole lot of transactions. Oh, maybe Mr. A bought it from Mr. B. Mr. B sold it to Mr. C. And it will give you a whole list, sometimes more than 2 pages, a whole list of what has happened on that land. Before that, even at background, you have to also do your localized investigation. Go on the ground, get to know some local people. Oh, so this area, if I want a land, who should I contact? They will now lead you to maybe a family head. A family head may now lead you to a chief. The chief it pays off than allowing yourself to be scammed or be put in a situation where you go and buy a land for say $50,000, and then later you still have to go and buy it again instead of paying say about just 5,000 to make sure you contact the right professionals to do the work for you. So it all boils down to getting, as for the due diligence, it's not just about going and then preparing what's the life cycle and requesting maybe report from the Lands Commission. The onus lies with you, the seller. What are you doing? What are your inquiries that you have done? Have you checked everything to see whether the right people you are buying the land from? Sometimes get what do you call it? Someone you can trust. Someone you can. It's all boils down to trust that you get someone you can trust to go. That will lead you, even if you are not in Ghana. Someone you can trust to lead this whole process for you. There are some people who are not in Ghana and we are able to register their lands for them. There are some people who have not even entered, but they buy the land. We go through the whole process, get their lands registered in their name. You get it? So it depends. You don't fall victim. Like I said, anytime you need the services of, try and see, ask people, ask relatives, have they used the services of this? If none of the people within your circle, just walk to the Ghana Institute. Let them walk to the Ghana Institute of Surveyors. They will give you a qualified surveyor to help you in this. And like I said, no surveyor from the Ghana Institute of Surveyors will undermine the services, undermine the work that you have, that what does a person gain from, maybe you have contacted me, let me do due diligence. But because of you, because of what I found here, I'm going to hide this evidence from you. I'm going to implicate this. It's not done. They stand for integrity. That is what we are being told. They have code of conduct. So one thing too is that getting a professional means that when there's a need that you found maybe a foul in the service that a person is rendering to you, you have where you can go. You know where you can go to get some remedies for what the person has done to you. Because we have code of conduct, something that we shouldn't do. You can report such a person to the institution that, oh, I contacted Mr. James to do this for me. Upon everything, this is what he has done to me. He has led me to buy fraudulent land. Then means that you, the professional yourself, your professional integrity, everything is at stake, and the institution must also take a second look at your credentials. So, Ralph, I will say that let's get to the right people, and then the right thing will be done for you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sylvia James. Back to you, Dr. Jonathan. Yeah. Okay, so I want to find out from you. We've spoken about affordable housing, and we've also been hearing of green housing. You and I know the key things when it comes to building a house in the land. And a place like Ghana, when it's far away, that is where it's a bit affordable. I mean, the land is a bit cheaper when it's far away.
Yeah.
So in affordability, meaning it's going to be far away from the city. But then green, when it comes to the green also, those are the places where we have the green. I want to find out from you, in terms of green housing, how often, we often see it as an expensive and out of reach. How can developers and policymakers and financiers bridge that gap between the affordability and the environmental sustainability?
So, first thing I will try to correct an impression that a lot of people have is that green means green, like green trees, forests when you're outskirts of, and it is part of it. It's part of it. It has a place there, but green development is largely where you are developing in an environmentally conscious manner that also makes your habitation, it increases the living comforts, the comforts of those living in that building. So building in an environmentally conscious manner that increases the comforts of a building, like the heat, the warmth, the ventilation, the lighting of the space, which, for example, when you and I'll say this, that for a lot of green ideas, for those who understand what green development can achieve, 40% of energy savings can be achieved with passive design. And I'll explain what passive design means. Passive design alone. And passive design is where you design your property in such a manner that it maximizes daylighting and all the natural comforts of airflow, ventilation, the direction of the wind at certain times, the understanding the environment in which your property is built. Where is the best, the angle or orientation of the building? Where should the building be facing to maximize daylighting? I once lived in a property that in winter here in South Africa, it will be extremely cold. So we had to have electric heaters inside the home. And if you step out of the property, it's warm outside in the daytime. So you know that there's something wrong with the design, because it's warm outside even in winter, but once you step into the property, it's freezing cold. Then we also realized that then the orientation of the building didn't allow for sufficient lighting in some certain buildings. So you'll find out that in some property, there will be a room where you would have to have electric lights on even in the daytime. So if you want to work in that particular room, you have to have your electric bulbs on throughout the day, which means what? Your utility bills are going up, you are consuming more energy, and that is the electricity grid that we are all connected to. It uses, in a lot of cases, fossil fuel, coal, petroleum fuel products, and so many other fossil fuels that generate carbon dioxide or that pollute the environment, and that by extension reduces the efficiency of that building. And then you have buildings in places like Nigeria where electricity is also insufficient, or there are a lot of energy blackouts. So you then have to rely on alternative energies like generators that also rely on what? Fossil fuel. So if you are designing, even the whole concept of green begins from the design stage, where you start to think, how can we maximize the use of natural resources like your ventilation? How can we maximize natural heating from the sun in this building so that the residents don't have to always have electricity on, maybe in the cold season, or in countries that are warmer like Nigeria? How can we, like, what should be the window size? What should be the window size to allow for maximum ventilation in the hot season, but at the same time reduce the penetration of heat from outside? Those are things that local developers without training will not incorporate into your design. So even for small developers in the urban centers, developing small apartments, small building projects and things like that, you can easily incorporate tools like the IFC's Edge app. By the way, I'm IFC Edge certified to help developers incorporate these elements that we're talking about. Right. So you can use tools like that to assess your design, to evaluate if it is energy efficient, water efficient, even in the kind of water faucets that you use in the design. Are they water efficient? Low flow faucets, for example, people know that low flow faucets are more water efficient than your normal taps. So you look at those elements in your design stage and then decide, okay, if we incorporate these elements. And the interesting thing about it is Many people do not know that when you incorporate some of these passive designs, you might not even you might not increase the cost of your development significantly. It is when you start to think of other very maybe technologically elements like your solar panel. You see, that is when you start to think of, okay, the cost of that. But there are passive design examples, like I explained, the orientation of the building. Where does the building face? And does it maximize sunlight? You know, the sun rises from the east and sets in the west. So you are thinking, what would be the best angle? Okay, maybe my building faces northeast. Then I will get maximum daylight before we then have to switch to, other electric sources. So those are the things that that you will start to see that are important in green, and that education is important for people who want to go green but are worried about the upfront cost. Some people have even found there are examples of green buildings, green certified buildings that are affordable housing projects. One of them is in Nigeria. I can't remember the name right now, but they are a mass affordable housing project in Nigeria, and they recently got their project EDGE certified by the IFC. So that should tell you that green is not just for luxury apartments, condos. It's also for this affordable sector. We need to also help people cut down utility costs, utility bills with passive design and other strategies that use natural resources efficiently. So what is missing there is just, a lot of creative thinking. We can start to use local materials, low carbon materials. There are a lot of companies now inventing materials that are carbon efficient. They have low embodied carbon energy. Like here in South Africa, I recently visited a factory, developed a new technology of precast concrete slabs that reduces energy consumption and also water consumption. So those kind of innovation, they are all out there. People are using them. It's important for developers to think creatively about them also, because that one, it reduces the cost, the overall cost of your development over a long period of time. And that's what people need to think about. That's what investors need to think about. How can we creatively incorporate green into our projects in terms of material, in terms of design, in terms of the technology that we can afford? For example, maybe someone has what do you call it now? Rain capturing, rain harvesting systems that allow them to reuse rainwater in the property. Things like that. It takes creativity and it takes some effort. I'll stop there.
So thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan. So yeah, James, I just want to find out, even in your introduction, we got to know that you've worked with some international and then local entities. Like, I just want to find out what are some of the key valuation or regulatory challenge foreign investors faces in Ghana.
Well, thank you for the question. As I said, valuation, even if you are an external person and you want valuation, it's just guided by certain principles. Regulation, no one really needs a regulation that we want to, maybe a foreigner want to, if you have a property in Ghana here, maybe a foreign investor want to actually assess the value of your properties. All you need is a qualified valuer from the institution to help you. Now, this qualified valuer is expected to use the principles guided by some procedures that they are supposed to go through to provide you with what you want. And some of these international companies come with some requirement that they need you to meet a certain requirement based on where the report is going. So in that case, you will have to now understand their need, understand what they require, and how that report should be prepared to meet their needs. So you now have to, based on the terms of reference they have given you, visit, understand, okay, they want the report to meet this standard. They have various standards. When I'm preparing a report for you, I gather here, maybe I don't really need, I'll just use the general standard that I know. But where there are specific standards or maybe some specific requirements by the client, you will now have to tailor your report based on that. Our institution, Ghana Institution of Surveyors, as we can, we have, and this is we call it Golden Book, and it's the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, or the GHI's valuation standards for 2023. These standards are in uniformity with the international, because it is based on this international valuation standards. We call an international organization the International Valuation Standard. They are the international base. Every country try to base their valuation principles or standards on. So based on these standards, you will now prepare a report. Not necessarily there, unless your property itself does not meet certain requirements. That one comes with the development stage of the property. But so far as the property is standing there, and maybe you as an international person, you have contacted a valuer in Ghana, or you are coming with a valuer in Ghana, trying to, all we need to do is try. If recently there was this valuation that we did for an international firm where we need to meet certain requirement or we prepare the report based on certain standards. So they will send you those standards, and you make sure you are preparing your reports against that. But nothing of that will deviate from what the institution standards it is within, but just that they need it in a certain format for you. So there are not much restrictions on what an international person want to come and do. You just have to come, and then we will just prepare a report for you based on what you require.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Xavier James. Dr. Jonathan, I just want to find out. I think you're on mute, Dr. Jonathan.
No, I'm here. I just mute once in a while because of other sounds here.
Sure. Okay, so I want to find out, are there any standout housing project or national strategies in Africa that others can learn from in terms of design and policy or financing when it comes to real estate, green housing?
So for me, I'll talk about a mix of green and non-green projects. So some are green and I like them, some are not green. So there's something here in South Africa called the TUHF, and they have a project called Umastandi in South Africa. They help, township economies or township-based property entrepreneurs build rental units. They offer them technical support and financing. And the great thing about them is their focus on urban regeneration. So the Umastandi is the part of their project that focuses on the township. But TUHF itself does urban regeneration projects where they provide technical support and financing to property entrepreneurs who look for properties in urban centers that can be revived. Your properties that have been maybe abandoned, old properties, they rehabilitate those properties. And those are the kind of projects that they finance. They are also considering and moving in the green direction. I believe, from the little I know, they are making moves towards incorporating green elements into their projects. And that is interesting to watch as that, rolls out. Another interesting one that I mentioned earlier, which is a very interesting one for me, is the NHFC's incremental housing finance. But they also offer, aside incremental housing finance, they also offer the FLISP, which is the first, I think the name has changed now, but it's for first-time home buyers, financing for first-time home buyers. And that's something that I think is an interesting project that incorporates both government. So TUHF, these two projects are in South Africa, by the way. TUHF is, I'll say both of them. You see, the interesting thing about South Africa is the way private and public play hand in hand. So TUHF and NHFC have the private design. They are run privately, but they also raise financing from government. So government has stake in them without being the primary provider. This allows, the efficiency of the private sector, like we know, while at the same time, bringing in public funding or public financing into that sector in an efficient manner. We, of course, reducing bureaucracy and corruption and all these other things that, hamper affordable housing or housing projects in Africa. So those two models, I would say, are important models to consider. There's also another one in Morocco called the Fogarim. Fogarim is a model where the government guarantees financiers for the financing of, or the capital they provide to homeowners. So it's like how you have a surety, which reduces the risk of default for the financiers, and then, of course, reduces the cost of that capital for those using that facility. That's another interesting one. In Nigeria, we have the Federal Mortgage Banks. What do you call it now? I'm trying to remember the name. There's the National Housing. National Housing Fund, where the Federal Mortgage Bank lends through banks to citizens, but they use the citizens' contribution, whether through their private employers or through government employment. Their contribution, there's a system where you contribute to that operation, you contribute to it, and then it gives you access. So that's another financing option. So for developers, when thinking about how to accelerate uptake of their projects, they need to consider what kind of innovative solutions like this exist in each country. Like I've mentioned, Nigeria, South Africa, and Morocco. There are also systems outside of these spaces. For example, there was also something that is quite popular in Kenya, which is not direct. It's not directly about housing. The Kenya's mobile money called M-Pesa, it also indirectly contributed to the access of people to payment facilities for housing needs, their utility bills, and for even paying things like rent. So that it has an opportunity, and I know there are. I don't have a clear picture of all the ways in which developers and renters are tapping into that system, but the fact that fintech is allowing everyday people, financial facilities that they will not have normally from banks like that, it has created opportunities for people to lend also to the small or low-income earners and middle-income earners in countries like Kenya. There are so many projects like that. In Kenya also, there's the Green Building Society. Also in Ghana, there's Ghana's Energy Commission, and all these certification bodies like the South Africa's Green Building Council, who are also rolling out certification for green building and standardizing the process. So those projects also, they are not direct development, but they are part of the process of standardizing what it looks like to have green projects, and helping then developers that adopt these standards can then tap into financing like the IFC, developmental financing from organizations like the IFC or the Development Bank of South Africa, and other regional financing facilities. So those are some interesting projects. And of course, there are also those that are material-based projects like modular. I've interacted a lot with founders and owners who are in the modular construction space, like Moladi Construction, the Modular Innovative Building Technology, MIBT here in Centurion. These kind of projects are innovative. They are using green elements. They are making construction also. They are speeding up the process of construction to cut down the time it takes to develop property. So those kind of projects are also innovative. There are some projects that I think we can learn a lot from, and we can also learn from their struggles or their challenges to know what works and what doesn't work. I think that's the most important thing, that these projects, they are taking steps that a lot of investors are scared to take. They're tapping into resources like government resources also to be able to help them take risks that private individuals do not want to take on their own. So there's a lot of lesson we can learn from projects like that. And let me stop for now on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan. I'll come back to you about the greenhouse, and I have some few questions that have popped up. I'll just ask those questions. But before I do that, Surveyor James, I just want to find out. I know we've spoken about surveyors and everything, but I want to find out from you, at what point do we get a surveyor? Is it the moment I start thinking of getting a land, or I wait till maybe I've bought the land and then I come and seek the service of a surveyor? I just want to know at what point. So those who are looking forward to invest in the real estate know the point when they should bring in a surveyor.
Yes, thank you, Marafo. You see, when I started this conversation, I told you that as a valuation and estate surveyor, you start from the beginning to the end. So imagine you want to buy a land and you contact someone like myself or maybe a surveyor or my firm. What it means is that you engage us from the beginning to tell us the areas you are interested in getting a property or your land. We do the inquiry and do all the diligence for you, and then we get you the land. It is at that point that the moment that idea is conceived, then the first point of call is to find a surveyor. Find someone who can advise you on this route. I know basically people will want to go around, and later when they have allocated the land, then they will go and get the surveyor to come and get a cadastral for them. But it is best for you to engage. The surveyor may not take anything from you from the initial, don't necessarily take anything from you, but the person will advise you. You see, the surveyor may not take anything from you from the onset, but it is more or less like an advice, because he knows that the work is not just the first point. The work is actually going to happen later on. Because if you engage a land surveyor from the institution, you know that definitely, since you are looking for land, you are going to do a cadastral, you do a site plan. That is where his work will be lying. So not necessarily being money conscious from the beginning, but trying to advise you and help you much. So I think that from the first point of call where you conceive that, I want to get a land, then you start. So who should help me? Some may use their relatives to help them. Fine, you go through and everything is successful. But if you have no idea, no one at all, get the service of a surveyor, tell him that, I'm looking for land in these locations. The person will identify some for you. And then go ahead and do all the necessary. While you engage the person and you want the person to look for land for you, that service is different. That you are then entering into an agency kind of. But if you have located your property already or your land already, and the land is there, a first point of call. Don't go anywhere, just get the surveyor. Even if the seller or the one trying to sell the land to you has given you a site plan, our advice, just take your own surveyor to the land. It will always be less expensive to do that at the inception, at the beginning of the whole program, than go into the future with all this transaction and you realize that I have spent so much for nothing. So just get the surveyor to go to the land you are interested in, get your own cadastral or your own site plan in your name, and then let's start the due diligence from there. So, Ralph, all that I can say is that the moment you start thinking, just like Dr. Jonathan said, the idea of bring everything begins from the design stage. Just like the idea of getting the thing right begins from the first point of you develop the idea of getting a land. Just get the professionals to assist you, and that becomes your bargaining power, your winning goal. That is.
All right, thank you very much. So we are James. Back to you, Dr. Jonathan. I know you're much into the research part when it comes to the real estate. I just want to find out from you, how do you see the greenhousing future in Africa? Like, is there a future for it? Do you think it's something that we will fully accept? I know it's gradually coming up, but do you think it's something that we will fully accept as people of Africa? And what benefit do you think is going to bring to us as a nation on the continent?
You know, that's an interesting question to ask. What's the future for green? And I presented a seminar recently speaking to this issue particularly. And the truth is this, that a lot of what we bring into the conversation about housing and housing affordability, housing development in Africa, we're almost like at opposing ends. We have people like Surveyor James now talking about title deeds, making sure that you have, your certificate of ownership, your due diligence, and the whole thing of titling across Africa is still a challenge that, many, let's just say, European countries have standardized that system, but we are still taking some time to be able to structure it according to the needs of each country. We are still struggling with systems of, okay, what even is the appropriate rental tenure? Should it be annual? Should it be monthly? And things like that. The rudimentary issues, like, even cost of material. We're still dealing with those kind of rudimentary issues. And then we have those who then still are now coming with futuristic things like, let's go green, let's reduce carbon emission. And it's a conflict for a lot of people. Like, how do we build green when we already cannot afford the basic ones that are being built? Then you want us to build these green, sustainable projects. Who is going to afford them? So it is taking some time for, Africans and people generally to see the sense in innovating when we are still struggling with some of the rudimentary things, like even just adequate shelter, adequate facilities in a property that does not have a toilet, a property that everyone in the property are all sharing maybe one toilet facility, maybe 20 people to one toilet facility. You will still have those kind of problems. So there's no simple answer to whether Africa is going to embrace green. There's no simple answer to it. Sure. Green is still talked about like some luxury products. And I think that is where we need to start changing and rethinking the way we talk about green. Green is not just about luxury. It's not just about having machine, because there's the elements of smart cities, machine learning, bringing in technology to manage your lighting, automating the lighting system in your property, and all of those other fancy elements. They are there, but there are also other elements that are inherent in the design, that do not need fancy equipment, that do not need fancy technology to be incorporated. But you see, those passive elements, they are the ones that even the poor need them, because you can be living in a slum and still be paying so much for electricity that you do not particularly need to be paying for. You can be poor and still be using up energy on electric cookers for the whole day with very little resources. That shows you that the energy problem, it's not limited to whether you have a fancy house or not. Energy is a problem, and we need to start thinking creatively about it. How do we build even the affordable ones that we are thinking about in a manner that gives comfort to the low-income family? It gives them the ability to relax and then to build wealth, so that they can move from being abjectly poor to maybe a little bit more comfortable. And for me, that is the ideology behind housing and housing design, is that how do we move people away from the state where they are struggling to a state where they feel more comfortable and they can do more with the resources they have. Once we start thinking about our housing design and systems that way, we will do more green projects. We will not need to be asked whether we should do green or we should not do green. I think that answers it for me.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan. So we have... Yeah, please go ahead.
So, Ralph, to add up to what Dr. Jonathan is saying there, I always say that, or there's this concept that green is not today. Green building did not start today.
True.
Green building started way back from olden days. If you see our old buildings, you clearly see that the type of windows they created, they had in mind to put some shading in there that it will not allow so much heat or so much sunrise.
Exactly.
The kind of materials they were using. Now, it all boils down to, now that we realize that the global issues or the climate change is becoming an issue, we want to escalate the issue of going more sustainable way. The issue in Ghana here, there's a company or an organization located in the UK called EMURALL, EREALL. Now, they developed a model of affordable housing which was totally green in the northern region for cooperative society, like people within the low income, and it saves them about 37% of the energy they use. So it means that if you are paying electricity bill for 500 Ghana cedis, it means that it's going to be reduced by 37%. That's another good thing for them.
And now, we have more money to spend on other things. Sorry for cutting you.
Good. And then the water too, even if they are connected to the public means, the Ghana water, the water too, it is saving more than 40%. So it means that your water bill too is reducing. It means that those monies that you are saving as a low income earner is helping everyone. It's going to be put into other use. There is another project that the IFC is also implementing in Ghana here. It is located in the Sekondi Takoradi with the municipal assembly. Now, anyone who presents their development for permitting and they realize that it is green, they give you a percentage of an incentive. They reduce the price of the cost or the cost of the permitting for you. All goes down to that regulatory aspect. Just like Doctor said, designing or maybe going green doesn't mean that you need to bring in this kind of. Look at Ghana. Now everyone who builds want to use sliding glaze. We have gone away from looking at the temperature we are in, or the kind of we have gone away from the louver blades. when we now want sliding glaze, how many times does the sliding glaze allow? It means that you have to open half of your window. And because of how privacy Ghanaians are, like we don't want people to see. So most of the time they close it and they have to use air conditioning. But if you have the louver blaze type, I don't blame them. It's because of the fancy. It looks so nice on the building. That one I can't say. You cannot. I'm so glad that now there's so much innovation coming up. Recently, I chanced on a certain louver blaze that looks so nice, even more than what the sliding glaze is giving. That shows us that yes, we are going that way. Coming back to what is happening at the secondary Takoradi, where permitting is, we need to find a way. Let's resource the district assemblies and the municipal assemblies. Let's get more green building experts in those areas. Employ them and let them advise these committees that sit on permitting. Now, even if you are going to build, let me come on the ground and advise you on how to position the building so that you may not spend more. How to even so much. We thought that please reduce the number of, and then go to this kind of material that you're going to use. So green building did not start from today. We are only trying to escalate it because our issues of global warming, now we are feeling so hot. Either we are feeling so cold, we are feeling so hot. We are trying to minimize that. And we realize that more issues that deals with heat are generated from buildings. And the issues that we are facing now. So if you realize that the carbon dioxide that is coming to the atmosphere, about 40% of it is generated from the building, the residents and the buildings that we are living in, then it clearly shows that yes, we can do something with the building and reduce the global warming, that extreme ends of rains and extreme ends of sunshine and all those things. Those are the things. So just to add on to what Dr. said, Doctor, thank you.
Thanks for that addition. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Sylvia James. Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan. I just have two more questions and we'll be done. And I just want to find out from each of you, one piece of advice you wish you had received when you started out in the real estate industry. So any of you can come in, like what was that one piece of advice that you wish you received? Sometimes we have some perception when it comes to entering into a particular industry. We have some perception. We get in there and it's different. Probably you met a particular challenge. I just want to find out what is that one thing you wish you had been told before stepping in there.
So if I may come in first.
Yeah.
I'm a professional. I don't develop yet. Maybe someday our firm may go into development, and maybe we may advise on things that.
Yeah.
As a professional, one thing I've learned that you shouldn't allow yourself to be led by money. I was talking about integrity. Now, I will not need so much from you to assist someone that needs just one simple answer to a question. I don't need to come up and create a whole complex situation for you to be in your head that, hey, then this person is going to, I need this person. If you need an answer, let not allow ourselves as a professional, whoever you are, but rather let not allow the money to lead us, but let the competence that we have, the service that we provide, speak for us. Today, if I engage with you, Ralph or Jonathan, or Dr. Jonathan, and I deal with you perfectly on a professional way and give you a service, what do you think happens the next if someone requires the service of maybe a valuer or a surveyor? You will tell them that, oh, I know one perfect guy. But imagine when I started with you, and all the issues have been money. Like I'm trying to find a way of cutting corners to make sure I get my money away without leaving you with nothing. You realize that no, you can never do that. So one thing I can give to my fellow professionals, especially those that are of my age, because we are always learning from, and this advice I've gotten, I had it from my bosses and my senior colleagues, that And I have realized that over the years, it's not just because of the money. Sometimes you give advice to someone free and say, "Oh, I've given you." It will not take anything away from you, or it will not. If out of the will of the person thinks that, "Oh, because of what you have done, take it," that's fine. But let's not allow money to lead us. And always, as a professional, we continue to learn more, we continue to grow because, as I said, the learning does not stop. There are new things coming. Even this green building, it gets to a time where we will come to your house and I will report on how sustainable or how efficient your service in the reports. And any buyer who want to buy that property, I will tell him that, oh, this property, if you buy it, then it means that you are going to gain, you are going to gain this so much on in terms of operating the property. So we keep learning, and doc, very soon we all become the experts in the edge, and then you try to see how best we can. So as a professional, it goes on. We don't stop learning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, James, and Doc.
So for me, one thing that always rings in my head about Africa's housing market is that we need to see the opportunity in scale, not luxury. Every time you see, most times, not every time, most times you see in the news housing projects in maybe Nigeria, you would see luxury apartments in Lagos going for millions of dollars or thousands of dollars. And the same thing applies for a lot of cities in Africa. Luxury is what is being projected as housing projects. And this is in the midst of rapidly growing cities. The population is growing. There's a massive low to middle income market that nobody is attending to, while there's a lot of investment going into condos and luxury apartments. And I will always refer to the TUHF example, that this organization could have focused on some elite project and create just solutions for a few select groups of people. But instead, they looked at urban regeneration projects that local entrepreneurs can tap into and then, rehabilitate these rental housing projects, commercial projects in urban areas that would be accessible to the low and middle income groups. And the impact of that is at scale. It's not just maybe one or two luxury apartments that you put on the market for 2-3 years looking for illicit funds to sell it, because that is what usually happens. What we need is to scale up the project in a manner that reaches the different segments of economies. When it comes to income level, the cities they are living in, what kind of city are you interested in investing in? Are you looking at a commercial hub like Joburg or Accra, Ghana, or you are looking at farming cities that are more for farm houses, cities that are more for educational cities, like cities where there are big schools, student accommodation. And I always say this to people, that student accommodation is also within the affordable housing space, because students are also now in between that young and adult space, and they are starting to become a household of their own. And also, while their parents are still funding to a large extent, it's also the level of independence in that period gives young people the capacity to start thinking about the kind of accommodation they want. So the student housing space is also another space that it has huge potential. I was in a focus group looking at student housing, student accommodation in Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa sometime in 2023 or 2024. And Ghana, for example, has a very huge focus on scaling student housing or student accommodation in a almost structured, semi-structured manner. The South Africa experience is probably more structured, but then when you go to countries like Nigeria, it's totally or to a large extent unstructured. So people who are looking to invest in some of these markets will need to understand the opportunities in each of those spaces. Do I go to a structured market like South Africa for maybe student accommodation and invest there? Do I go to a semi-structured one like Ghana and look at the challenges that I might have there? Or do I go to the totally unstructured one where there's room for high potential profits, but also the potential of a lot of losses where there's corruption, low security of title, and things like that in a country like Nigeria. So things like that are the consideration. And when an investor starts thinking that way, you will actually be solving problems, real problems that impact people, instead of just building properties because you want to quickly extract money from Africa with luxury apartments. So that's what I would say on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
So Ralph, sorry for cutting. You realize that in Ghana here, when someone starts selling, say, banku, and then the community members realize that people are buying from him. What do you see there? Beside him, you see the next person also banku there. It doesn't fit that way, because someone is also building maybe this apartment in this location. You also think that let me also go and build that apartment.
There's money.
There's something called there's something called feasibility studies, and sometimes as a developer, as a diaspora who want to invest in properties, it doesn't cost so much to do feasibility. Let someone understand the market, yes, and give you a report on how they will give you a projection of how similar properties that you have planned to do are actually faring against your own, to see whether with the projections of those properties and with your own, are they going to perform very well? Then you can push your money in there. Real estate, as they see, it's a best investment. But most of the time, there are some properties sitting here in Ghana that are so empty for so many years. The vacancy rate is so low and all those things. So it's all boiled down to get the professionals. If you get to us, colleagues, we know people who can do feasibility studies for you. You want to invest in Ghana, you want to invest in properties. Let's give you the data to back your investment. And that is all. So it's not about someone has set up a business here. I know business is good, booming, so let me also go and start another business. Maybe we can advise you.
To understand that market.
Exactly. And so most of our investors, especially those developers, they think, let me build after all. But you build, and for so many years, the property will be sitting there, nothing is going on. And remember that when the property is not being used, the deteriorating rate is so higher than when it's being used. Because almost all the time, because it's not being used, you go and you see doors have started warning out this, and you have to change them to bring them back to the best use. You get it? So let's try and engage the professionals, those who knows the job, and then they will help you.
So thank you very much, Surveyor James. And in fact, my last question was going to ask you to tell us one last thing that you want to share with us, since we've come to the end of today's section of the real estate investment workshop. What is that one thing you want to share with us? You want us to take away as we end today's session? So any of you can take that. Either Dr. Jonathan or Surveyor James.
Okay, so for me, I will start from where Surveyor James stopped, and I'll say truly understanding what happens in every market is important. The interesting thing is that data and information is very scarce. That's why those of us in the research space, we have to reinvent the kind of data that we work on, the kind of information that we source, and how we interpret them for investors. So when you are thinking your feasibility, your viability, whether the green evaluation, you will have to think differently than what is obtainable outside of Africa. While you might have the standard process like maybe the EDGE certification, which is important, and I will say to everyone that you should speak to professionals who are who understand how to get your green building certified, but also you need to think creatively about what kind of market am I going into and what's happening there. So that's why I'll then talk about data and digital tools. One of the sources of information that I recommend very highly is the Center for Affordable Housing Finance. They have a yearly evaluation of the state of housing finance and housing across the continent, and they are data rich. So I always say that if you want to go into any market, the data sources you use are important. And in that line also, there are other organizations like Estate Intel in Nigeria. I don't know about Ghana, but I know that there's an organization called Estate Intel in Nigeria that also provides data for, organizations that are trying to get into the Nigerian housing market. So data is important, right? But another area of investment it points to an area of investment that a lot of investors don't look into, and which is information. We need more platforms like the Center for Affordable Housing Finance, Estate Intel, to cover the scope of housing markets across the continent. Many of these platforms like CAHF and Estate Intel are stretched thin. They only can give as much information because they don't have the resources to cover the scope of Africa and every region and every country. So that is why organizations are cropping up. I personally am in the process of starting up a think tank called Housing Africa, and that's one of the areas we are focusing on to push data, to drive information gathering, to do policy analysis, to help people understand the kind of markets that are in Africa, the challenges, the risks, the opportunities, almost like how you would have like a feasibility of each market. And those are the kind of opportunities across the space that I think that investors need to start looking at. How do we create more, or how do we invest in more platforms that can gather data and make the market understandable for us without stepping our foot? You don't have to first get into a bush in Nigeria or South Africa or somewhere before you start understanding what's happening there. And that is something that I will encourage investors to start looking into. How do we back some of these organizations? How do we work with them? And what are the opportunities there? Because that is how we start making the market even more accessible. It's not just about building property. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan. Sylvia James, your last words to us.
Yeah, so Ralph, what I would say is that I will leave this because it says, if you think seeking professional service is expensive, then let's try ignorance. Let's try ignorance. You see, I will leave it at that because you may pay more than what you were supposed to if you don't see professional service, especially going into real estate. And one thing is that imagine you are developing your property. You develop about 24 units apartments. And the underlying thing, which is your land, is in the wrong process, or you didn't. Everything on the land goes away from you. The land we are talking about includes everything on it. If today your land is not in the right books of those who owns it, they take the property from you. And the moment you put yourself in their hands, you are their mercy. They will give you whatever. So let's try and engage professionals. Let's network. let's see how best we can get the best out of what we are. Don't go into an investment, no matter how big or small, thinking that, oh, I know Kodu, I know Kwesi, I know this, so let's do papa and get it done. Let's get it right from the onset. So that is all that I can say. Thank you.
Yeah, to add up, I think I agree. I agree with you because just recently I've seen a story building being collapsed, and also one that was built on waterway. I think in Ghana here on
Yes. Yes.
around Osu. The whole
Yeah.
building was almost done, and now government
Yes.
sees it on a waterway and it's being demolished. And I saw the now begging like a child. I'm like, yo,
Yes.
what is
You know the Pokwase stretch, the Pokwase
Yes.
road construction. You
Yes.
know, sometimes you are going to develop. You don't even know what is happening on the land. Maybe you have acquired a state land that is meant for rail line or what do you call it? What do you call it?
Road construction.
Road, and you go and build there. And you see, you have had a way of maybe you didn't even go for permitting, because if you have gone for permit, they may tell you that, oh, this land you can't build on it. It's for government. So most of those people along that stretch, the reason why government is skeptical to pay some compensation to them is because you are in the line. And when you are in the line, you cannot bargain much. It is only take the mercy of the government that, oh, let's give you something, because they don't want you to go so poor or maybe reduce your state. But there's no any government intention to take any property from you. So try and engage the professional from onset. We will do all this planning for you, and you realize that I am building at the right place. Especially those who want to build commercial properties along some roads and other things. The next time or the next 5 years, you see that, oh, because of congestion, the government want to expand the road, and you realize that your own, if you pull the tape, you are in the government, and they will go and check your land you bought the government portion of the land, and that becomes your loss. So let's try and engage a professional. Yeah.
Engage a
And
professional.
I just want to add one last thing to that sometimes also because of the profit-seeking nature of people, you also try to untwist government, maybe because of some corruption somewhere, you find your way somehow, you said you got a permit, and you know it's still on the government land.
Yes.
And it's funny, this thing happens to people. They will say someone in government gave them a permit, even though they knew when they were buying it that it was, well, we'll just do it for you, but it's still government land. The problem with that is that person that gave you that permit is not always going to be in government.
Good.
Government changes hands. Eventually, someone will come into that office and they will want things to go back to the original plan. Corruption is not going to help you in that situation, and you will then lose what you built.
Not at all. Yeah.
So I think we've said a lot, and I just want to say a very big thank you to you two, Surveyor James and then Dr. Jonathan. It has been a very interesting conversation, and I think if we have the time, we would have gone on and on. And I just want to say a very big thank you to you all. And we look forward to having you once again, having an in-depth conversation. I know we are going to have you again, where we are going to talk specifically on greenhousing. Just as Surveyor James said, it's something that has been with us in years, but we kind of slept on it. We now want to bring it back. So at the moment we bring the whole show to an end, and I would just want to say a very big thank you very much, and we appreciate you for making the time to join us.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the platform.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raf, for the platform, and thank you for everything.
Okay. Thank you. We're all welcome. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Now to the audience. This is we thank you all for joining us. Just as you can see, it's a event that we host every month, and we finished the month of June. The next edition will be on July 25th. those of you that we already have your email, we will do well to send an invite when it's time. And also, we have a group with the speakers and those looking forward to join the real estate industry, whether new or someone who is already in it, selling a building or something. You can easily scan the barcode and then it will direct you to the WhatsApp group. And until then, we say thank you to everyone, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next edition in July. That's 27. Thank you very much. To have a great day.